And on the other side, you have the guy running in New York, Mamdani, right? Okay, who's like a straight-up communist. I mean, he is. He talks about, the things that communists say. I mean, he wants free grocery stores, free buses.
Here's something that's been getting a lot of attention lately. Bill Maher just went after Zohran Mamdani, and the whole thing is quite a spectacle. The late-night host took apart the New York lawmaker's ultra-progressive vision, joking that his win felt like a campaign ad for conservatives. Maher's fiery takedown isn't gentle. It's sharp, steady, and darkly funny. Look away for a second, and you might miss it. Honestly, you may want to grab some popcorn for this.
Who's the most popular politician on the left?
AOC? I don't know.
One of, but who's Bernie? Bernie is
Bernie, yeah.
Bernie is. I mean, he's not a capitalist.
No, he's not, and he's also not president.
He's not. But
never would be.
But neither is Mamdani.
No, but he will, trust me, he will be featured in the campaign commercials.
But they're going to feature people. They boogeyman everybody.
Yeah, but you don't have to boogeyman him. He does it to himself.
Now, Bill Maher says he's not wrong. Republicans don't have to create a scary image of Zohran Mamdani when he seems to step into that role himself every time he speaks. With Mamdani on track for a possible New York mayoral win, critics say his rise could be a major political boost for the GOP, like a bright warning sign suggesting Democrats are drifting into an ideological fantasy. Mamdani insists he's simply a democratic socialist, but that message mostly resonates with his own supporters, and Maher isn't convinced. To him, Mamdani represents a kind of wide-eyed left-wing idealism that may sound good, but gives conservatives an easy talking point.
This must be horrible for a guy like you, who you spent your whole life talking about how government tries to do too much, which it does, and spends too much. And here you have Trump, who is the Republican, who is aggrandizing more power than anybody, as we just talked about. And on the other side, you have the guy running in New York, Mamdani, right? Okay, who's like a straight-up communist. I mean, he is. He talks about, the things that communists say. I mean, he wants free grocery stores, free buses.
I want him to win.
You want him to win?
Yeah.
At first glance, the pitch has a kind of utopian glow. It's full of warm promises and the kind of praise you might see on a magazine cover. But once you look closer, the edges start to show, and the vision begins to feel a bit darker. Sure, dreamers may be drawn in, but for those who've seen socialist experiments fall apart, it can feel like a cold repeat of history, dressed up again as progress and hope.
I think every 20 years or so.
Wait.
We need every 20 years or so, we need a conspicuous, confined experiment with socialism so we can crack it up again. Socialist slogan used to be, workers of the world unite, you have nothing to lose but your chains. The new socialist slogan is, trust us, this time it won't be a mess.
Right. Socialist projects have stumbled so often that many people treat the idea like a hot stove you don't touch twice. Of course, some younger folks are still drawn in by bright promises of fairness and a future where everything feels shared. But the issue isn't just self-interest, it's human nature. People respond to challenge, to incentive, to the sense that their ideas and effort matter. Take away competition and level out rewards too much, and things can slow down. Bureaucracy grows. Inefficiency sets in. Over time, a system meant to create equality can turn into something weighed down by waste and frustration. History has pointed this out more than once. When government tries to manage everything, the system can struggle under the pressure. Mamdani's proposals, with strong state support and broad control, may sound thoughtful and appealing on paper, but can be harder to sustain in practice. Without space to build, trade, and create freely, progress can slow, and in the end, people may find themselves sharing more disappointment than real prosperity.
When the post-war Labour government in Britain was about to get started, one of their leading lights was a socialist named Nurian Bevan. He said, what could go wrong? He said, we have a nation bedded on coal, surrounded by fish. It would take an organizational genius to have a shortage of either. In 3 years, they had a shortage of both.
Take a look at the United Kingdom. As a warning, in the early 20th century, the country leaned strongly towards socialist ideas, promising fairness, shared wealth, and level playing field for everyone. It sounded bold, even compassionate. Over time, that vision began to fade. Industries that were once dynamic, after being brought under state control, became weighed down by layers of red tape. Output dropped, prices rose, and the economy struggled to keep moving. The equality that was meant to lift people up didn't quite do that. It pulled much of the country down instead. By the 1970s, Britain had earned the tough label, the sick man of Europe. It wasn't until Margaret Thatcher introduced market-based reforms that the country slowly began to recover and find its footing again.
Beyond saying that we're going to make a sanctuary city for LGBTQIA plus New Yorkers, beyond saying that we're going to establish an office of LGBTQIA plus affairs, is also that we're going to provide $65 million in funding for gender-affirming care, the same amount of funding that the federal government was threatened to pull out from local providers for that kind of work.
Bill Maher worries that Zohran Mamdani could become a political trapdoor for Democrats, the kind that pulls the party away from the center and into trouble. He believes that when Democrats move too far left, they risk losing the moderates, who often decide elections. Many voters supported Donald Trump as a response to what they saw as progressive overreach, including heated debates around youth gender-related care. Yet Mamdani seems ready to step right back into that cultural flashpoint. Critics say he is backing major private fundraising for policies tied to those issues, doubling down on one of the most emotionally charged debates in American politics. To Democrats who value practical solutions over strict ideology, Mamdani's approach doesn't seem bold, it feels risky. They argue it gives Republicans a ready-made case that the left has drifted away from everyday concerns and the priorities of typical voters.
He has attacked you personally and publicly like this.
He's not a socialist. He's a communist, okay? This is not a socialist, man. This is a communist.
I don't like to see a communist become mayor, I will tell you that.
I call him my little communist. He's my little communist mayor. We should never be in a position where we're talking about a communist.
We're going to end up with a communist mayor. It's not even believable, my beautiful New York. I think if a communist takes over New York City, I think that's a gift to the Republican Party.
No need to dress it up. Donald Trump doesn't have to frame Mamdani as a threat. He often creates that impression on his own. He's talked about ideas like government-run grocery stores and free transit across the city, a vision where the state plays a much bigger role in everyday life. And while he calls himself a democratic socialist, the tone and direction of his proposals feel, to some, very close to a more hardline approach. Intentions aside, the platform fits neatly into the narrative that Democrats are moving toward full-scale socialism. And if it looks like that and sounds like that, well, you can guess the rest.
To what Martin Luther King said decades ago, a vision of call it democracy or call it democratic socialism, there must be a better distribution of wealth for all of God's children in this country. Here in New York City, wealthiest city in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, 1 in 4 are in poverty. 500,000 kids go to sleep hungry every night. It's untenable to live with this kind of a divide. We have to actually have a politics that puts working people first.
Here's something worth noticing when you take a closer look. Mamdani's pitch may seem fresh to some, but it echoes political slogans we've heard before. Big promises of fairness, equal opportunity, and shared prosperity, all wrapped in uplifting language and carefully chosen data meant to inspire belief. But history often shows a familiar pattern. Once the excitement fades and real power takes hold, that hopeful image can begin to crack. Policies may follow that slow progress and weigh down innovation. That's not the direction New York City needs, or the country as a whole. The strength of the United States has long come from the freedom to build, compete, create, and pursue opportunity, not from tightly controlled systems or enforced uniformity. Turning away from the approach that helped drive American growth has rarely worked out well. If history offers any guidance, it suggests the outcome may not be much different this time. And Bill Maher, known for looking past the humor, seems to see that possibility clearly.
I want to speak to the memory of my aunt. Who stopped taking the subway after September 11th because she did not feel safe in her hijab.
Well, it wasn't so much his aunt as his dad's cousin, but, semantics. Douglas, is he ready to lead?
No, in absolutely no way is he ready to lead, and that was just another reminder of it. This is such a self-involved little narcissist with so little going for him.
And that's the playbook, isn't it? Craft slightly embellished, heart-tugging stories to stir emotion and build support. It's an old political trick, just polished over time. For Democrats fluent in identity-driven storytelling, Zohran Mamdani's narrative feels perfectly tailored, sentimental, symbolic, wrapped in virtue, and presented as progress through empathy. The political machine is likely to embrace it, framing him as a voice for the unheard and a moral guide for the city. But those who look past the soft focus framing and polished language see something different. They aren't easily moved by poetic speeches or carefully shaped personal stories. To them, emotional storytelling isn't the same as effective leadership. Mamdani's narrative may resonate with idealists, but to pragmatists, it feels more like stagecraft, well delivered, emotionally precise, yet lacking substance where it matters most.
But he even decides to turn the memory of 9/11 and the 3,000 Americans that day into a story about his aunt and the subway. It's interesting, like so many things that this smarmy candidate does, he makes it about himself and it all turns out to be untrue anyway. It seems to the extent that he had any such aunt in question, she wasn't in New York at the time, and in any case, didn't wear the headscarf.
Turns out that warm, blowing origin story around Zohran Mamdani doesn't hold up quite the same under closer inspection. Still, in deep blue New York City, politics often follows its own logic. Loyalty can matter more than scrutiny, and he appears set to move forward despite the questions already forming. The real suspense isn't about whether he wins, but what happens when campaign rhetoric meets the hard reality of governing one of the world's most complex cities. Slogans are simple. Running New York is something else entirely. Watching Mamdani face that challenge will be interesting. His rise isn't being framed by critics as a sweeping victory for progress, but more as a warning sign. Behind the polished speeches and carefully shaped ideas sits a philosophy that history hasn't always looked kindly on. For some, the concerns are hard to ignore. If Mamdani steers the city in that direction, the impact may extend beyond City Hall and reshape the broader democratic image. And that brings us to the end of today's breakdown. If you found this helpful, feel free to like and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.